a leash around their necks, so to speak. They understood without instituting the Constitution of 1791 that we as a nation would fall prey once again to tyrannical powers. For the condition we are currently in, we cannot blame our forefathers. We cannot blame even you, our elected public servants. We cannot blame anybody but ourselves.
30 seconds, Lisa.
The people are to blame. We have allowed a tyrannical overtaking to wreak havoc on our inalienable rights endowed to us by the Creator. We, the people, have been absent. We have committed dereliction of duty, but no more. We are paying attention. We are engaged. We are watching you, as is our duty. We are watching out for our children, and we will stand to protect them. We, the people, will be here to guide you to do what is constitutionally correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry?
Yeah, I would like to let Lisa Hanson take my minutes, please.
Fine.
Thank you. I was really only prepared to share 2 minutes. We have a dysfunction in our government at all levels, and it's only our desire to work with you to afford the law to be followed as it should be. Our concern is the woman who spoke before I did. She has a concern as well. She has done her research, it looks like, and many of us have done research. Many of us have done research, and our concern is our children. Her research lends her to a different place than where mine has. I, too, listen to experts and look at peer reviews, et cetera, et cetera. I think the one thing that we have to remember, when it comes to masks, when it comes to vaccinations, or so-called vaccinations, however you want to say it, I think we have to remember what our founding fathers said, that we are the people and we should have choice. All men are created equal, and we are afforded life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So these decisions must be made by individuals, not by school boards. If they are made by school boards, are you listening to the individuals? Are you listening as elected public servants? I hope that you are. We want to protect our children, and we want to do what is best for them. And so I would ask you to find it in your heart.
30 seconds, Lisa.
Thank you. To find it in your heart to always put the children first and listen to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nikki?
Before you start your stopwatch, I recently lost hearing in my right ear, so if I'm too loud or too soft, I apologize. I'm Nikki Lundberg. I live in Albert Lee. My daughter, grandson, and I moved here about 12 years ago, but only after checking out what the schools offered. My grandson is autistic, and due in large part to his wonderful special ed teachers and paras, he has made great progress. He has also grown socially, a huge feat for kids on the spectrum. The pandemic brought many of these gains to a halt. Wearing a mask for any length of time induces high anxiety in him. He missed his classmates and expresses worry and fear daily, all day. He attended school online last year, but it seems the same option is not available this year for our most vulnerable kids. This is his senior year and already problematic. Albert Lee is mandating masks per federal regulation on the bus, so I will be tasked with driving him to and from school. This is ridiculous. How long before mandated masks and vaccines are necessary for in-person learning again? Are we to accept these one-size-fits-all solutions? Not my family. The decisions you are making now are adversely affecting many lives, especially those of our disabled children. Hopefully you aren't just going along to get along or to protect your positions here. I urge you to really do what's best for all our kids, including those most vulnerable. We will hold you accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to number 4, approval of today's agenda. So I'd look for an action to approve the agenda as written.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. Okay. Number 5, approval of the agenda. Number 5, we do have a little change on here that came in about an hour ago. It came from Fremont County as far as it has to do with our election judges, and you have those in front of you. Is there any questions on that as we make that change to our consent to the new writing that we received?
If there are questions, we should just pull it out of consent and have it separately. I move to pull it out of consent agenda.
Okay. We'll do that. So that, what number was that? Trying to look under here, 5. Yep, okay.
5, 6.
We'll pull that out, and we've got time frame on that, don't we, Dr. Funk, as far as making that approval?
Yeah, I mean, if you could just make it a separate discussion item tonight, and I would just put it under the first item under new business.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, we'll pull that and make it, okay. That'd be 7 point, let's do that 7.01 then, okay?
I would move approval of the consent items as listed with 5.6 pulled out to be talked out on the new business.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign? Okay.
I'll abstain due to the substitute teacher portion there.
Which one?
Substitute teacher, since I'm a licensed substitute teacher.
You would like to pull that one also?
No, I'm just abstaining
Oh,
from
we
the
got
consent.
you. Yep,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Jill. Okay. Yeah, that was 5.5, okay.
I guess I am too. I'm sorry.
Okay. Neil and Jill.
So it's 5 yes, 2 abstentions.
2 abstentions, yeah, 5-0. Yep. Okay. So then that will move on to our reports. Dr. Funk, Superintendent.
So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thanks for showing up to our community members who are here this evening. I'm really going to take my time tonight to talk a little bit about where we have been with this COVID business and really discuss the approach that we're going to be taking this year, because I really believe that there has been a perception that we're going to be doing something that we're not going to be doing at all this year. So I'm going to take a few minutes in my remarks here during my report to clarify the approach that I see the district taking with COVID this year. Go ahead, Brittany. So the intent this year is for us to operate in a COVID environment with minimal disruption to district operations. Okay, we're going to operate in a COVID environment with minimal disruption. Key to that is keeping everybody safe. Okay, COVID is real, and it's here for a while, and maybe for a long time. Okay, it's not going away. I think some people in our community believe that the district is going to take a hammer to address a solution that needs to be addressed with a fine tool. We are not going to operate like we did last year. Last year, we were operating under a number of mandates from the state of Minnesota. The district had no choice in how we handled the COVID situation. This year, we have one mandate. We have to mask while riding a bus. We have a seasoned team of leaders who have kept thousands of students and hundreds of staff safe for the last dozen years. Now that the constraints have been removed, we can do a better job of minimizing the disruption to our community while keeping our students safe. Go ahead. Like I said, last year the state of Minnesota took a one-size-fits-all approach to fighting COVID. Our district administration will take a surgical, layered approach. We operate in 8 different locations. We will be making COVID-related decisions at the building level, depending upon the location we're talking about. Part of a building might be impacted by COVID, couple classrooms, maybe more of a building. We will act as a district accordingly. It's quite likely that 7 of our buildings will operate in one manner while the 8th is undergoing mitigation. Unless we have an outbreak worse than last year, which I do not anticipate due to our level of vaccination, I foresee no district-wide approach to mitigation. Now, I'm going to go back to what I said, 7 of our buildings in one manner, 8th in another. Currently, we're doing that. We have 7 buildings in the district that fall under the rules and regulations of Elberly Area Schools. Our 8th building is our ALC. They fall under the rules of Riverland. Our ALC students and staff need to be masked because that's Riverland's rules and that's where we're operating. So that is an example of us operating in one area while the rest of the district is doing something different. Go ahead. We have a team that meets almost daily who monitors the situation within the district, and we make adjustments at the building level as necessary, and we will be. Kathy, during her presentation on the COVID update, is going to be providing the board information on our approach as at the different levels of potential mitigation as we move forward here. So once again, we are taking a layered strategy at the building level to address the COVID situation within the district. Thank you.
All right, school board members, let's see, we'll start over this side. Bruce? Okay. Jill?
No meetings to report, but I would like to bring a couple communication-related issues. Seems like there is a little bit of confusion in the community about the We Listen opportunity to give feedback. Some think that that goes to the board. So I don't know if we can maybe put a disclaimer there that it's not, make it a little more clear that it's not, because we don't receive those kind of communications, just for information. And then on our communications that we do receive, I had 3 recently go to spam, so I don't know, and they're from the community, so I don't know if filters have changed or if that can be, thank you. And lastly, if anyone responds on behalf of the board, which I've seen recently and have been carbon copied on, I appreciate that. I don't think that's always happened, so if we can continue copying the board if that wording is used, that someone's responding on behalf of the board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Neil?
2 items. I attended from a distant perspective, that is, the Austin-Albany Area School Education Cooperative Board meeting. The meeting occurred at Austin. It's on site, but it was remote. Didn't work out very well. We ended up, I think, on a phone connection for video or for audio. The video was on screen. Anyway, it was all pretty fairly routine. I have the agenda ahead of me, and it's a very well managed outfit. Superintendent Funk is the vice president. Yours truly is the clerk, for what that's worth. And things went fairly smoothly, and there's nothing really outstanding to report there. The other item is the Education Foundation, and a lot is happening there. Kim is also on that board. And we have a number of events coming up this summer, hopefully. The first is a fundraiser on September 17th. That is at the Three Oak Winery. And information about that is circulating about town, so I won't go into that. It's a fundraiser. The next is the Athletic Hall of Fame banquet, which is going to be September 25th. And that will be a banquet held at Wedgewood Cove, starts around 5 o'clock. Registration is necessary for that, and you can obtain forms at the website, Facebook, and various places around town. The third event is the Pathways to Success, which is distinguished alumni and distinguished educators. There are 4 of each. That will be a reception, not a sit-down banquet, which means it costs less. Registration would still be appreciated for that. That is October 14th. That's a Thursday. The following Friday, the 4 distinguished alumni will give a presentation to the seniors. Usually, I think this year there's some talk about including juniors in that presentation. And that's very well received. The students like it. The alumni enjoy doing it. So we're looking forward to that. That's it.
Thank you. Kim?
Good evening, everyone. I would just add, we did update the mailing list for those invites. So new board members, you get an invite separately. So be looking for that for the Education Foundation. I did attend the Business Ed Committee as well. There is a chamber training initiative that they're starting with the Chamber of Commerce, and it's going to meet the first Thursday of every month from 8 to 10. Topics include conflict resolution in the workplace, customer service, communication skills. They're looking for people to present if you're a specialist in that area, and they believe that it's better to be in person, so we'll hopefully be able to hold those in person. Also, John presented on business opportunities within the school for businesses for developing our workforce. And so I sent the PowerPoint presentation to Ashley to forward on to the board members, so you have that. And then lastly, kind of exciting news, the district received a Career and Technical Education grant, and they are going to be adding a coffee kiosk for our transitional students to run at the Riverland Community College site. And so they'll be doing their business, coffee cart business there, and hopefully that goes well for them. They've really started out with kind of a pilot here at Brookside, I believe, and the high school, and now they're going to be forward-facing to additional clients. So we look forward to that, and that's a partnership that Riverland and the school district are in, and that was reported out on. And the only other thing is I attended the kickoff for the new year. It was well done, and I really liked Kevin Gentz's address because he brought in students from graduates from a couple years back, and that's always fun to see how our students are doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Dennis?
Kim covered the Business Ed Committee, and I appreciate being there because I was out of town that day. So sounds like it was another good meeting. I think that was the first one in person.
Yeah.
So I like that just from the standpoint you can see reactions and what people are thinking more so than on Zoom. So that was a good change. Also good to see everybody out here tonight, and that's all I got.
Thanks. Oh.
I just want to do one correction. They ended up changing it to Zoom at the end because there had been a strike that day. So, yep.
So that's probably going to happen quite a bit right now until things settle down.
Thanks, Dennis. Angie?
Yes, Neil was busier than you remember because we went to a workshop last month. It was kind of an offshoot of the curriculum committee. Really good workshop. We met at the high school, a lot of administrators and teachers there, and Mike Funk led it. And we discussed basically, how to approach our curriculum in such a polarized environment. And we split up into groups and spent quite a bit of time discussing controversial terms. And it was just a fascinating discussion, a really good exercise, and just seeing how people really are approaching things so differently because we're defining words differently. But we probably agree on more than not if we sit and talk to each other. So that was very nice.
Good, thank you. And I got our teacher kickoff. That was a great beginning of the year again. Thank you. No students. Teacher Al, go for it.
I'm on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Al Helgerson, president of the ALEA, and I don't know if everybody understands why we have this position right here. As many years ago, Mike and Mark and I, after a lot of discussion, decided it'd be good to have somebody sit here that if you guys have questions, you can ask us. Plus, we can share, just our viewpoint on some things. And I try to make it a different person every year, and then I also try to be the first one here. And then the other meetings, it's other teachers from other schools. I have a few things to report. We had a new teacher luncheon that went really well. Double called me the next day and said that some of the teachers that he was working with that went to it said it was really, they thought it went great. And so I just want to thank you guys for letting us have those teachers for an hour every year. Nice, great, quality, intelligent-looking group of young, well, not all were young. Paula was there. Paula Boondorfer. Anyway, it was a good, looks like a good group. I've been talking with a bunch of teachers. Everyone's excited and anxious. And we're doing the Southwest is doing an open house as we speak. I'm heading back there as soon as we're done. It's good to see, I've been there since 11 this morning. It's good to see all those excited kids just roaming around, just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Let's see. Okay, did that. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Everything keeps going good. Last year, I just want to give you a little recap. Mike, Kathy, me, and Janice, who is our members' rights, plus she's our vice president, we started meeting in the summer to plan for that following year. And our teachers were very nervous, as I explained to Mike. We met sometimes 2 times a week, every single week, once or twice. And I know Neil and Dave were on some of those calls. Sometimes we'd butt heads. Sometimes, it was uncharted territories. And we didn't know exactly what direction we were going to take. But I'm also on this leadership team with Ed Minnesota because I'm a president. And we meet once a week. And so I was able to see all the people from every corner of the state and the problems they were having moving forward. And after a while, boy, I have to tell you, the administrators and the ALEA and everybody, we looked pretty darn good compared to everybody else. We did a pretty darn good job. Let's see. Also, I'm on the Minnesota Governing Board. And we had a meeting a couple weeks ago for 3 days up in Duluth. One of the topics, I know it's a hot topic, is the CRT, and I just want to make one little comment about that. As coming from Ed Minnesota, teaching truth is not radical or wrong, but praising honesty in education is sometimes a difficult reality. To conclude, looking back last year, even though it was bizarre and strange, knowing how we did work last year, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but we'll be doing a good job. I know we can if whatever pops up. And then one last thing, being president of the ALEA and representing the ALEA, I want to go on record and ask the school board if they could do something about, I don't know what that guy wanted last week or what his name was, but the language that he used that's despicable. My grandkids were sitting there. Other kids were sitting there. And this is a school board that deals with school kids. That's why we're here. So I don't know what you can do about it, but if you could do something to make sure something like that doesn't happen again, that'd be kind of nice. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Al. All right, we'll move on to 7.1. It's called Safe and Healthy Schools, but we decided we moved 5.6 to 7.01. And so let's discuss that. Mike, do you want to just mention, basically just adding Freeborn County in there in a few spots?
Yeah, again, couple typos in first paragraph there. They removed the words "the following duties." In letter B in Freeborn County, letter D in Freeborn County, letter G they added in Freeborn County. They recommended deleting letter I, and then conduct preliminary tests instead of test, and in Freeborn County in letter J there. And then M is coordinate and conduct school recounts for school district ballot questions if needed. If needed was added. Those are the changes.
Any discussion? Well, let me ask for a motion then, I guess, on that to approve the changes as written.
I move approval of the contract between Freeborn County and Independent District 241 as amended.
And Angie, second. Okay, any discussion on the corrections?
Are there any implications for removing letter I, prepare and publish post-election notices? Does it increase the district's cost?
No, it does not.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor of approving the changes signify by saying aye. 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 Oppose the same sign. Okay, thank you. All right, 7.1, COVID update, Kathy Niebuhr.
So I've asked Brittany, to leave the slides from last meeting up here that we started with, and that is the CDC order that students must be masked on public transportation, which includes school buses, and then all confirmed cases of COVID-19 that occur on our campus must be reported to the Minnesota Department of Health. So those two rules still exist. This is where we were in July for our high school students working, or our age 12 and up students working to be 5 weeks out with a Pfizer vaccine to be fully vaccinated. And that masks would be recommended. That is still the stance where we're at. We still are offering vaccination clinics. Been able to, Friday at the Freeborn County Partners Call, kind of verify some things with our public partners on vaccination clinics and some changes probably moving forward, not this week, but the week after with testing. We're very fortunate. Our employees who carry the district health insurance can both test and receive vaccines here on site. Quarantine data or information is pretty much the same as we've had. And then very little additional guidance this last week from the Department of Health. Last week we sent out a significantly one-page lengthy email to all of our families on masking. And we strongly recommend it. Also included information from Mayo Clinic on vaccinations 12 and up and masking, and their recommendation for either a disposable paper medical mask or a 2-layer cloth mask. So this is a decision tool that we actually have taken from other districts. Austin Public Schools has one, and it's posted on their website and their Facebook, Twitter feed, social media. And it really is what the Department of Ed and Department of Health provided us last year. And we've really, as the superintendent said, tweaking that for this year to be much more flexible and nimble at how we handle incidences. So first of all, starting with prevention, looking at face coverings recommended but not required. Health prevention measures are in place. Our staff, we've already dealt with 4 positive COVID cases that have come our way, some over the weekend, and then this morning our nursing staff. Obviously staff who are not on site and students who are not on site, but we are already looking for that information from families where there's positives and from employees. Frequent daily cleaning, we're providing cleaning supplies for all classrooms. Teachers have requested it, and we are complying with everything that they request. Daily screenings, we had our first attempt this morning of all staff, a little glitch in the system, so we're going to try day 2 tomorrow. And that is the same screening we used last year, so nothing different. We are restricting visitor access for the most part in the elementary where those students are not vaccinated. We know at the middle school and high school, we do have activities, so a little more wide open there, and also those students and staff have the opportunity to get vaccinated. We are monitoring virus trends in the community, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit from our Fremont County Public Health. The second, of course, is mitigation. Again, when there's one or more confirmed case at a facility, so the 4 we have now did not occur on site, so we've not taken any additional strategies yet with that. Persons who come in close contact with a confirmed case will be contacted, advised to follow MDH guidelines with contact tracing. Fully vaccinated individuals will not need to quarantine, and then we'll continue with cleaning and sending our self-monitoring and prevention information out. Then we move to modified operations. Should there be multiple confirmed COVID-19 cases in one specific area, like a classroom, a bus, it reaches high enough numbers, we may have to quarantine staff and students on site. Face coverings may be required. For instance, if we have a positive in a building that's identified, so say someone comes to the building and we are notified mid-morning that a positive test, even though we tell people not to send their kids to school while they're pending test results, unfortunately we know from this past year that did not always happen. So individuals in that area, again, will be advised according to MDH guidance. Students and staff impacted will be moved potentially to the distance learning model as quarantined. The affected area will be cleaned for deep cleaning, continue sending out monitoring, prevention information, stay home reminders, and then a short-term closure of a facility may be necessary if guided by the Minnesota Department of Health, Fremont County Public Health, or staffing. I do know that an individual I spent some time talking with this weekend about a positive case, they were contacted by the Minnesota Department of Health. So we're still waiting for, what different, if anything, MDH will be doing with contacting, notifications, letters, et cetera. Should we have confirmed COVID-19 cases that exceed 5%? And I met with the nurses last week. They were back on site on Wednesday. We did all attended virtually the Minnesota Department of Health briefing for COVID-19 coordinators as well as Minnesota's licensed school nurses. And then we met afterwards and talked about this process as well as the meeting. And this is no different than if we would have an outbreak of, say, norovirus. These are the same percentages. If it exceeds 5%, then for us, that would be approximately 12 elementary individuals, 25 at the middle school, and approximately 60 at the high school. If we had that number of positive cases in a building, then we may move to closure of that building. Let's see. And then, of course, we need staff, and if we have staff that exceed that 15% or more in one building, a closure will be reviewed. The entire facility and activities may be closed for a minimum of 10 days. So we're looking at, if there's positives, we're still at that 10-day quarantine, go back 2 days if they experience symptoms. So if you think of a positive occurred on a Saturday, day 1 becomes Sunday, we're really looking at no more than 8 days. And that is a lot. I'm not saying 8 days is isn't a lot, but we're looking 5 to 7, 8 at the most. Students and staff could move to the distance learning model. Those in close contact with the confirmed COVID-19 positive persons will quarantine according to MDH exclusion guidance. And of course, the last thing, which would be significant, is if there are COVID-19 cases exceed that 5% occupancy in 2 facilities. If licensed staff absent due to a quarantine reaches 15% or more in one building, a closure would be reviewed. And so, we would look at potentially all Albert Lea Public School facilities would close for a minimum of 10 days. Student and staff move to distance learning, disinfection. All auxiliary areas such as playgrounds, athletic fields may be closed, and then we would follow the Minnesota State High School League guidelines for inter-school competition. So it is as the superintendent said, not a one-size-fits-all, 1 case, 12 cases. We never did reach that threshold of 12 in any building, if we talk about 12 in the elementary last year. So this is, I think last year I tried to provide you a lot of data as we looked at the numbers from Freeborn County. So these are Freeborn County Public Health numbers. They are public. They are on Freeborn County Public Health Facebook page. I don't have any special insight to anything other than everybody else who follows them. So on the left you will see July. So the dates in the July that they posted on their page, the number of active cases, new cases, active cases, and then what I did is I took school age, so the categories of 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and 15 to 19. And in yellow, that is how many positive cases that they reported. And then moving into August, that is on the right. And you can see that there's a little bit more yellow. Last Thursday, we know there's a total of 13 cases. That is reported from the Minnesota Department of Health. That information is also public. But I don't have disaggregated numbers as Freeborn County Public Health did not post that. So that's why that's in blue. So we currently have in the county as of today 11 new cases, but those are over the weekend. They don't report on Saturday and Sunday anymore. They report those on Monday morning. And then active cases were at 67, and one of those ages 10 to 14. So you can see on the 12th, the last time they reported their total was 65. That number 18 earlier, those fell off. So 10 days, or some of those fell off. So graphing that, it kind of looks like this. So blue are the new cases on each individual day that they reported. That red line is the accumulated active cases that are 10 days. And then down at the bottom, you'll see our school age cases. Now, we don't know if those are our students. They are Freeborn County students. So they might be Alden Conger, they might be Glenville Emmons, they might be homeschooled, they might be students that are tuitioned out somewhere else. So those are our Freeborn County cases as they were from this information.
I have one question. Do we know when the vaccines will be open for the younger children?
That's a really good question. I don't have an answer, but I hear it asked on every national news station every morning. I have not heard. We don't have a date on that we've been informed of.
And Kathy, on your graph, you had said that the yellow highlighted number 1 meant that there was 1 in the active cases. Is that active or new? Would it be new cases?
So those would be the new cases that were reported that day. So the
Okay.
they put their totals on the side, and then they disaggregate them by age groups all the way up to 100. And so those 0 to 4, we do consider that school age because we have preschool here in VPK. So yes.
And then when you mentioned that we report occurrences that happen on campus, what does that mean? Kids who have been actually in school since?
Correct. So they've been on site. Our nurses all last year. So we kept our data separate. But if a student was on site and infectious at any point, then we had our nurses filled out what's called the Red Cap survey with the Minnesota Department of Health. Yep.
And then the MSHSL guidelines, they're a little concerning to me since there was a lot of sports activity last year. Do we know what those guidelines are currently?
Paul's going to come up in a minute, but I had a Big 9 superintendent meeting on Friday. We touched base on this. The concern, basically everything's just recommended from the high school league at this point, and the concern is this. Different districts throughout the state of Minnesota are taking different approaches to COVID. So I believe that Rochester is going to be masking. They're going to be having a vote tomorrow. They're going to mask the whole district. So their procedures are going to look different for their practices. Game procedures, I think, Paul, you can maybe help me out here. They've provided minimal guidance as far as what masking will look like or things like that. The biggest difference, I think, will be if a district is recommending that all of their students be masked, then you may, when you go to an event indoors at one of those districts, if that's the policy or the procedure, then everyone may have, so our fans just need to be aware that when they're going to different places, there could be different rules. And Paul's going to come up here in a little bit for the State High School League update, so then he can give us a little more information on that.
So just to be clear, Kathy, when you talk about that 5% in the schools, you're talking about cases that were tracked that happened in that building, not necessarily students that have had it in that building.
Correct. So those would be 5% of active cases on any given day, all at the same time, not 5% from September 1 through October 5th. So we'd be 5% of cases in that 10-day of infectiousness.
And Kathy, when you mentioned that all cases have to be reported to the Minnesota Department of Health, is that us that reports them? Is that families, or how does that work?
So if they are on site, we had an infectious person on site, our nurses report that through this red cap survey. It's very basic. And then last year, the Minnesota Department of Health reached out to families. And as I said, the individual I talked with this weekend, they did get a phone call from the Minnesota Department of Health. We had not filled out anything yet because that person was not on site. So, you know, the Minnesota Department of Health gets results in different ways. All those medical testing facilities forward that information. But and we do hear from the Minnesota Department of Health if we don't put one in the red, at least last year, if we don't put one in the red cap survey and they see one and we haven't reported it, and the family has the opportunity to say yes or no to notify individuals. And if they said yes, you can notify the school district, they will notify us if we don't have one. And I don't think, it didn't happen very often last year. But.
Hey, Dennis.
Are there cases where a child could end up contracting COVID and then the parents don't report it to the school, they don't report? What happens in a case like that? We have no way of knowing.
We have no way of knowing.
And these guidelines that you're going through there, those are the steps you said that are already in place by Minnesota Department of Health. Is that the process?
So that decision tool, districts are developing with their public health, with Minnesota Department of Health. They're very similar to last year, but a lot more local control on making those decisions than the mandates and guidance we received last year. So they're general enough, yet guide us enough. But they are very similar to, as I said, those percentages, very similar to what our nurses use for, probably the most prominent one is norovirus that we have to report to the Department of Health.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right, 7.2 is an action item, so we're looking at a resolution of adoption of our health and safety measures for the 2021-22 school year.
So this is very similar to the resolution that we asked the board to approve at the beginning of last year. The difference really is last year we talked more about learning models. This year, really, this will provide us the opportunity to adjust, as Kathy just went through, as we move into the school year and the COVID environment we're going to be operating in. Key to this resolution, first of all, is a vote by the board to establish the baseline for the year, and that is the recommendation to recommend masks for all of our students, and families will be making that decision as far as what's the best interest of their child. And then the other piece of this is really this directs us to put in very similar health and safety measures that we've utilized previously. This is based off of an MSBA model resolution. We have tweaked it. We've removed the CDC language because the CDC language has shifted over time. It used to be a few weeks ago it was recommended Now it is, they're still recommending it, but we're not tying it to, if we pass this resolution and the CDC language changes, we'll have to come and I think revisit the resolution again. So that's really what it's at. It's resolution to start the baseline year and give us the ability to adjust as we move forward. I think I just really want to emphasize again, last year was tough, and it was tough for a lot of reasons, but our hands were tied as far as how we were able to really work on at the district level, how we were able to work through the COVID situation. I remember throughout the year we would have different discussions. This was a monthly topic of discussion. This year we are able to really focus it, narrow it down, and identify it at the building level. I think one of the big concerns that people have is, okay, here goes the district again, could that happen? Could happen a couple different ways. One, we could see a huge outbreak, and as Kathy said, multiple buildings are outbreak. The other way it could potentially happen is if we had a mandate come down from the federal or the state level that we would have to adjust to. And if it's a mandate, it's a mandate. We don't get a choice on that. But right now, my belief is they are going to leave this into the hands of local districts, and that's why we have this recommendation in front of you.
Okay. I would look for a motion to pass Resolution 7.2.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and now open for discussion.
I had requested earlier today the MSBA model wording, but I hadn't received that. Do we have that present at the moment?
Ashley's gone for this week. So, as I stated, and Angie caught something yesterday. Within the model policy, it alluded to, or the resolution, model policy 302, which we don't have in our district, which really lays out the law. The superintendent's duties are codified in Minnesota statute, and 302 lays out what those duties are. So that was removed. The CDC language was removed. And then they had a number of potential recommendations for vaccines, how districts were going to do with vaccines. We removed all vaccine language. They had resolutions regarding masking certain age students, masking everybody, but they didn't have a recommended for everybody like we're doing. So those were some of the different options that they provided.
I have more of a procedural question for those who would be everybody here who is more knowledgeable about Robert's Rules of Order than I am. I'm actually, for the most part, okay with this. My one concern comes up in Section 3 because it conflicts with the motion that was tabled from last month, which we're voting on next on the agenda. Section 3 says that with all things, the administration is able to change things without a school board vote, and then the following motion that I had made last month that is coming up is only specific to the masking, and it says if masking policy changes happen, then the board would need to vote at the next meeting to approve that, to give the public some say in that. And I'm just curious, if we pass this, what happens when we get to the next motion? Would we need to go back and amend this then to pass the motion I made last month, or can they both be voted on and pass? I'm just curious how this will work.
They could both be voted on and passed.
Okay.
I have a concern with Section 3, which reads, the superintendent is hereby authorized after consultation with the school board chair and notification to the school board et cetera, et cetera. And we have policy 201, which states that none of the board members apart from the board body have authority, and I would prefer that that reading would say, rather than just notification to the school board, that the school board would be involved with consultation and approval.
So how would we work that in an operational environment where, okay, we have an outbreak in a building and I have to quarantine a classroom and maybe put a mask on fourth graders? Do we have a board meeting to decide that?
Probably not on a health and safety issue that quickly. We haven't had one yet, which is good, and I'm not anticipating. I mean, currently, under policy 208, I mean, we basically are just we provide the general direction, and then when there's no guidance or any existing policy, then the superintendent is acted authorize under the circumstances, both health, safety and health-wise, and also financial consideration for the school district as far as decisions made. So I see where you're at on 201, Jill.
And so this would then just pertain to emergency changes that need to be made, and then our next agenda item would be to then approve those measures at our next meeting or workshop.
If both of them passed.
Exactly.
Dave?
Neil?
Yeah, I think the board always has the prerogative of introducing a motion at a regular meeting to contradict or to move in any direction that we wish. And the tabled motion is fine. In a sense, I think it's redundant because we always have that ability to contradict something that the board feels strongly enough about contradicting relative to an emergency action taken by management. But I think we can nitpick and come up with faults in this resolution. But the fact of the matter is that the only way we're going to escape from the trauma of this COVID-19 pandemic is to mitigate and to avoid drastic measures whenever possible. And I think this resolution goes a long way, about as far as we can in achieving that. I think it's actually rather mild. The ball is, in a sense, in the court of the citizens of this district to perform those mitigating practices so that we don't have an outbreak, so that we don't have to suffer the drastic consequences of an increase and escalation of the incidence of the virus. So I'm in favor, and I think and as far as the table motion, I see no problem with that. But we'll discuss that when we get to it.
Any other? Yes, Dennis.
What we have in place, just because of the dynamics, the politics of everything right now, you've got two totally different ends of the spectrum on everything. I truly believe what we've talked about is highly recommended, is meeting the needs of the healthcare workers and the other workers who are in very, very strict scenarios that have to wear masks when they're at work. And then in order to protect their children need to be masked as well. You have the other end of the spectrum that feel there's no need for vaccination, there's no need for masks, there's no need for everything. We're going to be caught in a no-win situation. We're going to go down a deep rabbit hole if we keep trying to direct every single decision that's going to be made. As a board right now, we are set up as a governance board. That's what we have said. We have said we're delegating the responsibility to the administration. We're going to trust in those decisions. We can have all those decisions in place, and tomorrow the state of Minnesota is going to come down and say, nope, you're going to do this, this, and this. We already know we have to wear masks on the bus. People are upset at that. There's nothing we can do about it. What we've done by highly recommending and basically the work that the district staff have done to come up with this and to mitigate, as has been said, it's the people have to make the decision. If it becomes a game, if it becomes political, we're gonna see a lot of issues happen. If people work together, those that need to wear masks do. Those that have a case of COVID stay home. If they're not feeling well, stay home. We're probably, no matter what we do, we're in a no-win situation right now. So I truly believe we got to get this taken care of and focus back on the education of our kids. COVID will take care of itself, but it's all of us doing it. So let's trust in our district to do the right things, to keep making things happen, which over the last year and a half, they truly proved, as has been stated, throughout the state, we were recognized as one of the better districts getting things done. Sorry it's so winded, but I think we got to be well aware of it. And no matter what we do, we're not going to please everybody. And if the shoe doesn't fit perfect, then there are other options that people can do. But how do we affect the most kids in our district and make a positive change?
Thank you. Kim?
Yeah, you know, I very much echo what Dennis has said. It was the 2 points that I was going to bring up as well. I think I do want to thank those community members that have become very engaged and are advocating for their children. That's what we're here for, and so I'm thankful for that. But I also believe that this resolution is evident of the work that had been done over the past year and a half, and it's just solidifying that. So I believe that this is the right course for our district.
Just to clarify, all right, the school board, in consultation with the superintendent and appropriate school district staff and public health officials, deems it in the best interest of the school district and its students to implement different health and safety measures. Folks, we talk COVID every single month at board meetings, and we give you updates on what is happening within the district. At that time, if the board says, okay, superintendent, we don't like how this is happening, that's an opportunity to approve or modify the agenda and make it into an action item to do something different. So it's within the resolution.
Yes.
I believe there was a couple of times when presentations were brought up to the board dealing with the middle school and the high school. We had some concerns and asked some questions, and I think there was some tweaking then that was done. So I think as long as those communications are brought back and forth, it's actually good that we have an audience that is here this evening, that is also watching the school board meeting, because the more they listen and see, they will start recognizing that that is happening to quite an extent.
Kim?
I would call the question.
Okay, thank you. Question has been called. We have a motion on the table to adopt resolution 7.2. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye. 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 Oppose the same sign. Aye. Okay. Resolution passes 5-2. 7.3, presenters, Angie. Motion table from July 19th.
All right, do I need to actually motion and get it seconded again? Okay, so I'll just read my motion that I have. I motion that administration is authorized to make changes to the district's masking policies as needed and without prior approval so that fluctuations in circumstances may be responded to quickly. However, if changes are made to the masking policy, the board will then need to vote to authorize the changes at the next scheduled meeting or study session in order for the changes to continue being implemented. This motion is specific to our district's masking policy and does not apply to other COVID policies.
Okay. So Angie made the motion, and I would look for a second. Okay, Jill seconds, so that would open up to discussion.
Let me just say, this is pretty straightforward, and we talked about it last month, but the reason I brought this up is because I have heard from a great number of people, and on both sides of the aisle, as we've seen tonight from our speakers, that people, they want to have a say, they want to have a voice in the masking issue. This is limited to just the masking issue because that seems to be the biggest thing that people care about, and personally, I do think that it is bigger than an operational issue. For some people, it is going to determine if their kids are going to come here, and depending on how we would do a masking situation, it can really affect the culture of the school district too. So I think it's something that people are asking that we're involved in. I know it puts us in some uncomfortable voting situations, but I think that's what we're here to do, and people want to know what our stance is on these things. So that's my thoughts.
Thanks, Angie. Yeah, Neil.
As I said earlier, I don't see this as a problem. We always, as I said, we always have the right to contradict as a board a decision that's made by management. As Jefferson pointed out in the Declaration of Independence, those incidences should not be brought about for casual or flippant issues, and certainly this is not casual or flippant. But it appears to me that the motion would introduce a sort of inverse to the power that we already have, whereas now we would have to introduce a motion to contradict a decision made. Now we would have to introduce a motion to concur with a decision that has been made, and quite frankly, the results would be the same in either scenario. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
That's my thinking on this.
Okay, thank you. Bruce?
Don't we actually have this now, actually, where if we don't like the masking policy, doesn't the board have the right to bring a resolution forward to change it? I don't feel we need this resolution myself.
Okay, thanks. Dennis?
I'm not even going to vote on it. I'm going to abstain because it doesn't fit. It's what we're already doing, and it's just going to take us farther down a rabbit hole. So just say I'm going to be abstaining.
The feedback I've been getting from the community, whether it's written or in person, is that they would like more representation in these kind of issues. And so it's a delicate balance between, honoring elected officials who represent the people. In the end, we're here to serve the people. We're here to serve the families, and public education itself is here so that the families don't have to do it if they don't choose to. I don't see any harm in having this motion. It just gives more voice to the elected representatives of the people that are sitting on the board. And, there's been lots of talk about governance and model and all that. There's, in the 15 years or so that I've been sitting here, the longest of anybody here at the table, it's more than just managerial or governance model. There have been kind of just a relinquishment of any kind of representative voice in many areas. I would like to see more representative voice back. I don't believe that everything is an operational issue. Certain things are very unique. They are very critical. They're definitely not run-of-the-mill, ordinary, everyday occurrences. And so in those types of occurrences especially, I would like to see the community represented by having the board as a whole vote. And, however we're going to vote is going to be, how we would one way or the other. But I don't see any problem in having this motion in place to give them that extra level of accountability and voice.
Okay. Yeah, Kim.
So I've actually heard, so community members reach out to me as well. So I think we all get feedback from the community, and the community members that I've heard positions on both sides from the community. But I will tell you the resounding message that I hear from most of the people that reach out to me is that if you take this decision, these daily decisions that happen away from the people that we've trusted to do this, that we hold accountable to do this, then what's next? And that's a fear of people that work in the district, that people that support the district, that's the fear. And so I feel that every time I sit at the table, or those of you, my colleagues, that we do represent the voice. And we all come with a different perspective, but at the end, we listen to those voices. And I would be hard-pressed to say that any time any crucial decision that's happened here has happened that we haven't listened to those voices. So I don't think this motion does that. I think what this motion does is says that it puts the board members in a position to basically be situational. And I think that the previous resolution has put us in a place that we can pivot and we can adjust. And isn't that what we've charged our administration to do? And so I feel like I'm like Jill. I think the people should have a voice, and I'm hearing the opposite voice. So.
Yeah, Dennis.
I think, and that hits it, is we are in consultation with the administration. We're bringing what we're hearing. I'm getting calls constant on both sides of the issues, emails on both sides of the issues. But if we're bringing them forward and talking about them, and they're taking it in good faith and working it into the decisions, and we communicate it out, then we're accomplishing what that resolution has said.
Yeah, Neil.
This is a rather complex issue, and I hear a lot of things. The concern that if the board starts voting on management decisions, even though this specifically relates to the issue of masks, it establishes a slippery slope, and pretty soon we're going to be voting on how many paper clips they order at Southwest. I'm not worried about slippery slopes. I don't think that's going to happen. We keep hearing the expression, we the people, and the people have a voice. Well, the people do have a voice, but forgive me if my civics lesson is slightly different than some of what I've heard tonight. The people's voice is multi-layered. As you pointed out, I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of contact from constituents about issues, and sure, that's great. I love hearing them, and any platform, emails, call me on the phone, confront me in the street, whatever. Love it. That's great, and that's the people speaking. But the real speaking that the people make is when they vote. And that's one of the benefits that I see of this proposition, because now we board members are going to have an opportunity to publicly present our position on issues that are dear to the public. And so when the people speak at the ballot box during the next election, they can sort things out. And I have no problem with that. And I will also say that in the time, I haven't been on the board as long as Jill, but it's my second term now. It's not a record-breaking tenure by any means. But I have rarely, I've never, that is, experienced a situation where a management decision flew in my face brutally that I didn't like. And I've never had, I've always felt that I've had an opportunity to provide input, and that there has been, you know, adjustments made maybe in decisions made by management. And as far as the board's involvement, I think we've made some pretty good progress there. Angie and I are on a decision-making committee dealing with curriculum. I'm on the negotiating. All of us are involved in management decisions, not always determining exactly what those are, but we're part of the decision-making process. So I mean, I'm even more long-winded than Dennis, but I have no problem with this motion, simply because, quite frankly, you know, I can't. I'm not going to say that it's not possible, but I would be hard-pressed to come up with an example where I would disagree with the decision that management has made. We hired management to make those decisions, and I haven't been disappointed, and I can pretty much assure you where my vote's going to be, because I've probably had a part in that decision in the first place, relative to countering any decision that management makes.
Yep. Any other? Mike?
So I just want to clarify, so when we make a decision regarding masking, because as I stated at the beginning of the evening, all right, we are not looking to do universal masking in this district unless it's a mandate that comes down, or we have a COVID outbreak that was probably worse than anything we had last year. So now, if I have fourth graders playing on the playground someplace from two different classes, and there's a fourth grader who's positive, and one class might be quarantined, there might be a few kids exposed from another class, we may recommend, okay, you're going to put mask on for 5 days for this class, just for safety. So I'm supposed to come to the board and ask you, okay, to authorize, no, I make that decision. So then the next board meeting, I ask you to affirm that decision.
Angie, is that the way your intent?
Yes, I suppose so. From my perspective, there really isn't any harm in doing so. I have a hard time picturing the board honestly going against whatever you would recommend, but to give us a chance to vote on this does give the people a chance to have some influence. And as Neil had pointed out, if we don't do what they want, then they can replace us with other people who will when it comes time for them to vote for us. And so it's important to give them that power. That's what I'm hearing that they want to have. So, and I wanted to comment too on the idea of the slippery slope. As the person who's been kind of the pain in the butt trying to push all these issues, it's not a slippery slope. If it is, I would be at the bottom of the hill. There's no worries about more things coming, and you know, I don't think anybody here wants to nitpick over little tiny things, but this is a big deal, and I think it's worth asking about. So,
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Oh, Neil.
If I were not long-winded enough already, as far as the public is concerned, and I'm definitely in favor of doing things that reassure the public, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. And I see this as an example of where the public is demanding, or certain elements of the public are demanding, that we become involved in processes like this. And I don't, and as I said, I don't think it will change. I can't imagine a decision made by management in the case of, you know, an explosion of occurrences and masking mandates imposed or whatever. I can't imagine ever contradicting that. But if it makes the public feel better about the process, fine, go for it.
All right, seeing no other discussion, we have a motion on the table. Basically, and I don't know if you want to restate it, Angie, but I think we all understand that if a decision is made as far as a masking-only situation by our administration, that at the next board meeting, either a study session or a board meeting, that we would bring it to the board to basically ratify or overturn the administration's decision. Correct? Okay. If you're, all those in favor of 7.3 signify, and Dennis will abstain, correct? All those in favor of 7.3, the way I kind of summarize it, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. Aye. Aye. So that's a 3-3, and there's
3-3-1, motion fails.
3-3 sorry.
1.
Okay. Yep, 3-3-1, correct. Okay. All right. 8.1, curriculum and instruction. We have the building principles, elementary and secondary handbook updates, and I see a few or one coming up. Mr. Mahal.
All right. Good evening, everybody. For the elementary handbook, this past summer, we did not make very many changes or revisions to things. We updated the times for the school day based on what the school board agreed to. We put a statement in there regarding the breakfast and lunch being at no cost for our families for the school year. As that's already kind of in place. And then the only other thing that we discussed, and Kathy brought it up earlier, is just having no visitors or volunteers in the building at this time to, again, continue to make sure that our students stay safe because we cannot vaccinate them at this point.
Okay, then I would look for a motion to accept the changes to the elementary handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on that.
John, I just want to thank you for your work on it.
Neil, anything? Are you okay? All right. With no other discussion, all those in favor of the changes signify by saying aye. 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 Pose the same sign. Okay. Passes. Thank you, sir. Secondary from the Southwest.
Is our schedule. So at Southwest, 8:30, finishing at 3:15.
All right, any discussion?
Vote first. I'll move to approve.
Okay. And second? Okay, you're right. Any other discussion on that? I got the approval in a second. Jill?
I know you're new in that position, but I remember years ago, just talking about cell phones now. And so at Southwest, they're not allowed to use them at all during the day, correct? And then there is a certain level that then they're confiscated. Parents have to pick them up. It looks like they can do that any day of the week now. Before that was a big problem, and they had it just on like Thursdays or something. Do you have any idea how much cell phone confiscation is happening, or if that's going to be an issue for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, but, and again, yeah, I don't know as far as how many cell phones were taken at Southwest, but that policy still is in place for this upcoming year.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of the changes at Southwest signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and oppose the same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. And now the high school.
Not that many. I'd say 4 or 5 throughout the year. The parents actually have to get them. Once you take the phone, the students freak out a little bit, and they learn quick. So I would say not that many.
Do you feel like they are being used only as the handbook dictates, or do you feel it's kind of a choose-your-battle situation in the classroom?
Because this handbook says no use, right, throughout the day? Yeah, I mean,
They can use it like in the locker bay, something.
that's the high
but
school,
no.
and I think the middle school one actually says no use, but
Yeah.
we're not searching it out. If it's not creating an issue, it's not something we're going to hunt for. Does that make sense? The high school one is in locker bays, in the hallways between classes, and then by teacher choice in the classroom. And so the teacher can choose to take the phone away. And we're actually, one of the spots we're going to rebuild in the next couple of weeks is the cell phone policy, because there's some gray area in there. We're going to try to make it more clear.
Okay, yeah, so I was just going from high school with you. So your first comment was about Southwest then?
Yes.
Okay. I
Not that
gotcha.
many. That's the
Okay.
Southwest.
Okay.
Now I'll
gotcha.
start high school
Okay,
stuff.
gotcha.
Okay.
Thanks.
Start and end time was the big change. We are now 8:30 to 3 o'clock to accommodate the buses getting to Southwest by 3:15. The staff day remained at 7:30 to 3:30 with an optional flex to 7:45 to 3:45. No option to flex earlier this year, so our staff remains in place until 3:30. It gives us that half-hour cushion after classes that staff are available to students. Backpacks is a change. We are going, like we did for COVID, we're going to allow them in the classroom. It seemed to be a non-issue last year. Less students running to their lockers for either a bottle of water or because they forgot a book, for a calculator. So the backpacks are being allowed in the classrooms this year. If it turns into a problem with that many people in the classroom, we'll revisit it. But for now, we are going to go with a system that worked, something we can learn positively from COVID as we move forward. As I said, the phones, we're going to re-establish that one. There's too many levels of what-ifs in the handbook. We're going to water that down and just, it's class by class. If the teacher sends them, we don't want to have to suspend students for phones. We want to make them realize that that teacher wants you to be paying attention to something else. So we're going to revamp that one a little bit with teacher input and probably student input on that one too. I'd like to get student council involved in that one. We moved the no hats and hoods to the top of the dress code because that's a big issue that we faced last year, and it was kind of let go at the high school. The district policy is no hats or hoods in the district. We will be following that policy. Between the hours of 8 and 3:30, the hats will come off at the door, the hoods will come off at the door. There'll be some retraining to do. We are prepared for it. We're looking forward to starting that tomorrow or Wednesday and Thursday when our students come. And the last change is there is no longer a charge for parking. You still have to register to park your car in the lot, but the fees have been removed.
Yeah, so the hats and hoods thing, that's a change? I mean, as I recall, that was always the case, no hats, no...
There was a slide of when you wanted to talk about fighting battles. And so it slid at the high school the last year, and we're going to go back to what the handbook says, to be consistent with safety protocols across the district.
Is there still a parking lot attendant?
There is not any longer. That's kind of me now. If I need to go out there, we can go out there. But I have 2 deans, 3 counselors, and a whole group of people. But yeah, Lynette is no longer there, which is where that money used to go, if I remember correctly, which is why we're doing the free permit now.
So I should have probably asked Tyler this, but is the chaos at Southwest parking lot due to bus transfers, is that still...
It will be back in place.
It's back in place. I was afraid of that.
He'll do a great job. It's a great learning experience for administrators.
Not quite as bad as it has been because the elementary is getting out at 2:45. So they're actually going to be able to drop off some of the elementary kids before the transfer takes place. So it'll be bad, but not as bad.
This may not be a handbook question, but back to suspensions for those kind of things. What kind of things are in-school suspensions and what are out of school?
In school as much as we possibly can,
Yeah.
but out of school, you know, we need to send that message for tobacco, alcohol, drugs. Those kind of events, fighting any sort of violent acts is when we usually move to the out of school first.
Okay, I would look for a motion to accept the changes to the sector handbook.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose the same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. What? Mary Jo's up. Yep, Mary Jo.
He's, the Activities Handbook.
Oh, did we move it up? Oh, yeah, you're right. Athletic activities. Yes, Paul.
Only language, minor language changes to activities. Handbook, no procedural changes within there.
Well, we still better make a motion to accept the language changes. Yeah. And that was a first and a second. Hill and Dennis, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose the same. Thank you. All right, 8.2, Mary Jo, school startup update.
Thank you. I was just so excited to get up here because now we actually get to talk about student learning. This is what we're all here for. So these are just some back-to-school updates to start the year with. And, oh, I have the clicker.
I just say Brittany, it's your.
I got a clicker, I'm good. The principal's already shared the change in the school hours, so they are there. And then, of course, the big update this year is we were approved. Board directed for us to do the application for an online school. We did the work of that, and it was approved, and so we are officially approved as a 412 online provider. And we had several reasons for doing that. We know some students really thrive in an online learning environment. We also have students in Albert Lea who went to other online providers, not in Albert Lea, and we lose money in the district as the money follows those students. So we have had some students come back now that we offer it in-house. And you know, the other benefit is some districts, especially smaller ones, because it is a big endeavor, that they can come for some classes online or full online, and we can provide those services now. And
do we have students that just are taking like one class or what that's not available at like maybe
right now it's pretty, the majority of students are comprehensive, which means they're full online students. And I believe at this time we don't have any supplemental, but I do see that coming down the road.
Okay, yeah, that's a great advantage that we could have, offering courses that are not available someplace else.
Yeah. Currently, there's 55. I know John Double, as you know, he's taken on this role as leading the online academy once we got it approved. So as of Friday, it was 55 students.
One other question, and I don't know if you have this information out, but do you have any idea how many students have opted for online because of COVID?
I don't know the exact number. I know there were family inquiries about it. Mike, I don't know if you've heard anything specific from John on that, but I don't know the exact number, Neil. But I believe there was a few families that was their choice.
It's nice to know that we have an option for students that are not satisfied with whatever arrangement we have come up relative to COVID or anything else, other than going someplace else.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mary Jo, you may have said it, but what grades encompass these 55 students?
4 through 12. And down the road, you know, whether we change that, I don't know, but it's a good start just with intermediate and secondary students, really for our learning, get it started, and then continue to grow the program. Any other questions on online?
I just one with the online for those with special needs. Is there the online opportunity right now, or is that too hard of a situation? Is it something eventually we can look at, or?
Nope, anybody can register. John did a really nice job of starting in July. Every Wednesday he had informational sessions where families could come in and learn more about the online options, which includes if you're, say, a student who's also an English language learner, you can sign up for the online program, but you need to understand that it's very self-directed. And the clarification was made to families that it's not distance learning. Distance learning was last year through a pandemic. This is a true online environment. And so you have to be that highly motivated student who wants that, type of learning environment. What was your other question, Dennis? Did I answer? Okay. And special education. So English language learner, if you're a special, student who receives special services, yes, you can be part of it, but we want to make sure it is the best fit. So we do talk with parents, make sure everybody understands it's different, it's not distance learning.
Hey, Sheila, are you back there? How many kids, special ed students, do we have online? 16. Yep. 16 out of 55 are special education students.
What was the percent of the special ed enrollment?
It's right under, close to 30%.
And for those ELL learners, are there special services for them for that? I mean,
So they will receive services from our staff, from our EL teachers who are trained to work with the English language learner for support. But we have to make sure families understand it's an online program. So part of English language is the immersion of your peers and adults in that building. So making sure that it could affect the growth of which the English language is being learned. So there's a lot of discussions going on.
One quick question on the online academy. Is this something where homeschool families would be able to send their kids for a class or two if they wanted?
Yep, and we did reach out we targeted homeschool families as well, just letting them know that service was there. If you wanted to take 1 or 2 online classes with a combination, we were looking at options there. We didn't, at this point, I don't believe we have any homeschool families who have registered. But they did give us some feedback of things to consider possibly for next year. This is just a reminder that we do have a district curriculum committee. It will come up later in a conversation we're having, but it does consist of parents, community members at large, retired teachers, administrators, and then school board members. And right now it's Neil and Angie both sit on that committee. And we meet 3 times a year, and the big topic that we'll be talking about in September when we meet is the social studies standards, but we'll be coming to that a little bit later. So here's just an update on the Minnesota academic standards and where we are with implementation in Elbert Lee. So physical education, I'll just explain the process first. So MDE has each content area on a 10-year cycle. It's a 10-year cycle, but it starts with a revision when that 10-year comes up of looking at the current standards, and a committee is formed of committee members from around the state. So it's made up of teachers, community members, it's an application process. And then that group looks at where the standards are and what changes they recommend. And then there's draft processes. So the committee works together, they come up with the first draft of changes, and it goes out for community input. And it's been this way for a long time. After the community input, this committee meets back again, looks at the input, looks at other changes they need to consider. Draft 2 comes out. They look at changes at that time. And then draft 3 is getting ready for the final draft, which then goes to what's called a rulemaking committee made up of administrative law judges and MDE folks who are making sure all the rules were followed, the standards meet the benchmarks, all the rules that have to be set in place for standards to be approved. So anyway, that's a long process. I feel like, sorry, we're getting a little windy tonight. I don't mean to be. Yeah. But you'll see why I'm kind of leading up to the standard discussion. So anyway, Physical education, this year they are fully implementing the new standards, as well as the arts. The arts are an example of where standards went to the final draft and then to rulemaking, and were rejected out of rulemaking, and it took another 2 years to get approved. They are approved now, and our staff is way on top of it, and we've started full implementation. Science is also another long story, but I'll make it brief, in that the standards went into revision, but it's a whole philosophical change on how we teach science. It's more letting the students learn instead of us telling them what we want them to learn. They call it phenomena-based. I think we're going to see pretty good success with it. And MDE gave us a 5-year timeline to introduce and fully implement the new standards in the district, in every district in the state. In Albert Lee, where we have very ambitious teachers, to say we can whittle it down to 4. And the reason we can't implement right away is earth science. The state has changed in the years in which we're going to teach earth science, and to do that, we have to we have to follow the students of when they've received earth science. We just can't take it away if they haven't had it yet. And again, it's way more detailed than you probably want to know, but in Albert Lee, we'll have the standards fully implemented in 2 more years. But last year, Southwest, those teachers said we're ready to roll, and they were the ones who were instrumental in getting it going, because earth science got moved to 6th grade. So to start that, 6th grade had to be the one to say, we got it, we can get started. And they did a lot of summer work and the prior summer, and they fully implemented last year, which now meant elementary did the work last year. We're implementing this year, and then the high school is following the shift now as the students come through. So we're on target with science. English language arts, they're in revision right now. And due to COVID, they delayed them another year. Just there's a lot going on. Last year was a tough year for groups to get together, et cetera. So they've delayed full implementation of the new ELA standards to the year 25-26. So currently, we are not doing anything with the new standards at this time. They're close to being fully approved, though. Then we get to social studies. And you've probably heard a lot about this nationally, statewide. The social studies standards that are being proposed are very controversial. The first draft was released in November of 2020, and then it went out for public comment, as in every other standard that we've talked about here. And in that public comment period, lots of comments came in. The second draft was proposed to be done in February. They get the public comment. All right, we'll work in January, and we'll have them out to the public in February. Well, it was so, controversial, and a lot of public feedback that they just came out in July for the second draft. And as of today, the public comment period will close. So public comment period was open. We shared it with staff. Feel free to make your comments. Here's draft 2 of the social studies standards that are being proposed, and that's where that's at. So not sure when draft 3 is coming out, but we're going to talk about this in a little more detail next. So I'm just going to kind of keep going. Okay, back onto professional development in the district. You've heard a lot about the work we've been doing with high reliability schools. There's indicators. We've talked about level 1 in the district, and there's 8 indicators to say that what researchers have said, that to be a really successful school with sustained success and the work that you put in it, these indicators are 8 things that are really impactful in what you should do. And so this included, over the last couple of years, parent surveys, student surveys, teacher teams working together, administrators working with teams of How do we improve it in the district? What's the data telling us? And then also some things, all right, we're really rocking in this area, but this area, we got more work. And so that's where the work has been with high reliability schools, of digging in and trying to improve in the areas that we need work in, and then maintain the areas that we're doing pretty well. But what's new for this year is we're really focused on, and this did start last year somewhat, but now this year's focus is level 2. And level 2 with high reliability is effective teaching in every classroom. And there's 6 indicators listed there, and 6 indicators to be a level 2 certified school. And so this is what we'll be working on this year in our PLCs, in our building-wide PD. We'll have district-wide PD in January. Just the things that it takes to have a really strong school system and effective teaching. The other professional development, the reason I'm sharing this is new. This year we're offering all the licensure areas that a teacher would need to maintain their license. You know, normally we do have many of these areas that we do in-house anyway, but this year at the beginning of the year we said, hey, let's just do it monthly. We'll have our staff prep for the classes and then provide it to peers. And so any teachers, it's their choice. And we'll do it once a month. Come on in. It'll be after school, and we'll help with your licensure areas. You know, good for us because it's our staff doing it. There's no travel. So got a lot of feedback. We just shared this on the first day of school with all staff, and feedback was very positive that we're doing this. And then just a few other programming things, just updates, is English language. Beth Faber will continue to remain our district EL coordinator. And then I just want to let you know that our numbers continue to rise. Currently, we're at about 343 students who receive EL services. That's the most in the district we've ever had. And that doesn't include the incoming kindergarten students, because we will test those students when they come on site. That's how you determine who qualifies. It's a state test or state assessment that we give. And we'll continue to have, this year we have 12 success coaches, which is the same as last year. We have Burke Egner, who has presented to you before. He will be doing a couple periods a day. Instead of teaching students, he will be working with our staff, doing professional development with them, really supporting staff. He's great to work with. You saw his energy. Everybody loves him. So he'll be a great addition to increasing his work with our staff and tech integration. And then college and career pathways. I put that on here because I know we've talked about this at quite a few board meetings of what are we doing for student interest, not just career pathways, but not just college pathways, also careers. And so there's a lot of resources that school counselors, administrators, we've all been looking at, and there's a lot of resources that we're going to be digging into and making future plans. As well as, I know John's talked about Future Forward, and he's been doing a lot of work, John Double, with the Future Forward plan of connecting businesses in southern Minnesota to our students. So.
I encourage all of you to look up Naviance. It's a really wonderful platform, if you haven't already. Kim is familiar with it. And as far as careers and you know, opportunities for non-college after high school programs.
There's a lot of different inventories for it, things kids think they're good at, things they think they might like, and then puts them together with potential careers that maybe they wouldn't have thought about.
I think this aligns really, really well with what's happening in post-secondary and bringing it down into the high schools and even in the middle schools, because if you look at forecasts for 2025 for workforce, it's crisis mode, and so especially in the trades and the earning power that happens in those areas. And so I think students that, if we set them on a pathway that's predetermined that someone else predetermines, and this gives them the opportunity to be engaged and get parents engaged and see what else is available.
Yeah,
So,
certainly.
good stuff.
And it is our responsibility to really open up all those doors for students. So. And the last piece on the back-to-school update is just we've added resource specialists to each building, and they're really to support what we know coming out of COVID last year is there was a lot of needs. And these are veteran teachers who will be working with families and students and our teachers and really connecting on using data, parent feedback, anything we have to support families the best we can to basically come out of a pandemic. So.
And these positions are how many years? It's a temporary 3. Thank you.
Yeah, and I might add that I think 4 of the 10 recipients of teacher grants are purchasing materials that will assist them in trauma, COVID-related trauma, or trauma in general, but a lot of it has to do with the whole COVID scene.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work with trauma in our schools, trauma-informed practices, but I think COVID opened the door to a whole lot more of teachers also getting into homes and just seeing the crises that were happening, or the crises. Okay, so sorry, that was kind of long, but any questions on that? As Mike looks at me like, yep, it was. Okay. Yeah, I didn't work on my brevity today, but it led up to the next topic that we're talking about, and Neil forgot to talk about it, but Angie did, of the Social Studies Working Group update. And this was, as Angie said, Dr. Funk had led this because we are in a charged community, or charged national environment right now. And, it's hard on staff. It's hard on families. It's just, I don't know how you describe it. But so really the purpose of this group was to start first with, let's look at the social studies standards, because we're hearing lots of things out there. And do we all understand what the new proposals are? Well, we set the meeting, said that's what we're going to do, and the day before the meeting, or a day or two before the meeting, it was announced by MDE that the second draft was just being released the day after we were going to meet. So we're like, well, do we want to spend all this time looking at draft 1 when draft 2 is now coming out of us for our input? So Dr. Funk took it from there and led the group, and I, like Angie, agreed. It was a great discussion on where we're at, what teachers are feeling, how do we address as a community, how do we support the community? And the real takeaways that came out of that meeting, and Neil and Angie, feel free to jump in, but one was the economics of we need to reteach poverty, because over 50% of our students are living in poverty. And do we really understand what that means and what our implications of that are as educators? The second bullet came from teachers that were in the group, and they said, we just need help. How do we navigate some of these tough issues? How do you respond when some of the things come up in class? And so we didn't get any of this resolved, but it was our culmination of the day to go to the next meeting, kind of start tackling this. And then the third bullet also came from teachers was, as our community becomes more diverse, we need to prepare staff to meet the changing needs of our student body. I think we try keeping up with our success coaches are a great example of working with staff, explaining their culture. But do we do enough of that? Nope, we probably need to keep, obviously continue on that journey. So this group is going to reconvene in September with this work and the social studies standards as well, I assume, but we'll see where the drafts are at that point. So that's a social studies group update. Neil, any other thoughts on that?
I can, you did a good job, Mary Jo. And there are a whole variety of topics that were introduced that we discussed in small groups. And, one of the conclusions that I drew out of this was that I don't think it's ever been an easy job conducting a classroom, but boy, it's really sketchy now. There's a lot of challenges out there, and there are a lot of situations that could develop that are going to require some pretty creative, innovative thinking on the part of the teacher in front of the class. And we need to train our staff to deal with those scenarios that could come up, and how can you de-escalate situations and deal with all the controversial issues about which several people have some pretty strong feelings, and sometimes those strong feelings get a little out of hand. How do you deal with that? And we would be remiss if we did not do everything we can to provide our staff, our classroom teachers with the equipment to deal with those tricky situations.
Jill?
Mary Jo, what were some of those charge or confrontational kind of issues that were addressed in the first draft?
Well, in the first draft, the standards came out, but there weren't benchmarks aligned with them yet. And so when you think of the standards, like and we're talking grades K through 12, there's 22 anchor standards. So there's 22 standards K-12. So you can imagine they're kind of broad. Well, and this is part of the legislative rulemaking, is you have to have benchmarks with every standards. So the benchmarks weren't there yet. So it wasn't clear when it's pretty vague of, well, what are we teaching here? Because it's really not clear. And so that caused a lot of consternation of, I don't know.
So as a social studies teacher, okay, the Holocaust was not mentioned anywhere in the initial standards. I think some of the wars that we have been through were not mentioned anywhere within the standards. It went to concepts and theory, when we go back to when we hear about the Constitution in 1791, not as much focus on concrete American events that have occurred. And so major controversy over the first set. I think the first round, the standards were maybe 30, 40 pages. I think what's the 170, I think, is the second round of standards. So now they've gone off the deep end with a lot more detail. Holocaust has been brought in again on the second version of the revision. But there's still a lot of, I think there's a lot of agendas within our society that, okay, we want you to teach about this, that I think a number of groups legitimately have concerns about. And so I think the legislature is slowing the social studies implementation down because of that. I think the makeup of the committee is, I think, 36 or 40 people. There's some controversy over who's sitting on it, and so it is just, it's politically charged, and to the point where I never lead workshops or study groups in this district, but in this one I took the first day of it because I really think as a school system we need to take a balanced approach to educating our students. And part of what we talked about in that meeting we had was we took a topic and, let's take a topic, like say all lives matter, okay? Well, yeah, I mean, everybody can sit and agree that everybody matters, okay? But what does the statement mean? What do the supporters of it believe? Why does this irritate some people? And then how do we, because our classroom teachers are dealing with this issue on a daily basis, how do we best prepare our staff for that? So that was, because of the delay in the second revision coming out, that was really we went through small groups, talked through a number of those type issues. We didn't come to any solutions, but I think what you saw coming out of it is what Mary Jo's got up here on the screen.
So does the district actually give an official response or input, or is it all just individual inputs?
Yeah. So our intent is to really have this group come together, develop a response to what we think about the standards, share that with the district curriculum committee, and then have that come through the curriculum committee to the school board. And then we will provide that feedback to MDE.
I think, too, it helped. I know Mike shared at the all-staff kickoff on Thursday that this group had met and that, it is about balance and perspective, and we have to work together and we have to do what's best for students. So all staff heard that as well, of it's not being ignored, but it's not something we can say, well, this is what we're doing today and so be it. It's big. So, but I think that was good to make all staff aware of that, because our first group meeting was this summer when this group came together.
Any other questions for Mary Jo? Thank you, Mary Jo.
All right, thank you.
All right, 9.1 under effective and efficient operations, we have a new fee structure, it looks like, for activity passes. Paul Gerbon.
All right. Well, thanks for having me up here second time tonight. So just looking for, this is an action item, I believe, on the agenda. Yep. Looking for an approval to raise our activity ticket prices $1 in anticipation of our region section, our conference ticket prices increasing over this year and next. As most schools move to online ticketing, our conference, 10 of the 12 schools are now using online tickets. Our section, region, the State High School League will all be using online ticketing as well. And of course, with those opportunities comes some fees within those tickets. So we're looking at, we were at 7 and 5 for tickets at our events, and it'll be moved to an $8, $6 structure, should you approve this. The other thing to note is all district employees, all students, K-12 students in our district, and all senior citizens in our district are free to events in Albert Lee. So really, when we talk about those barriers, those are really excellent policies in place already. This would be more adults or visiting students, visiting senior citizens that would see a dollar increase. The Region 1AA, the section that we belong in with the High School League, has approved a $10, $6 structure for this year. So we're obviously well under that at this point still.
Any questions for Paul?
One other item of note is just that the online tickets have become very, through the last year, it was very appreciated. One other thing we noticed is efficiency and cost saving within our offices, and a lot less money counting, runs to deposits, and transfer money through finance. I mean, it's just a lot easier process. And the other perk that will come along with online ticketing is our student IDs will be able to be scanned now as well. So every student, they show up at an event, talk about that barrier being removed. We already issue a hard copy student ID to every student in the district. we're going to be able to utilize those same hard copy IDs where they won't have to go online and try and navigate a website to purchase a student pass there as well. So that's just another one of those perks that would come along with utilizing online tickets this year.
Jill, do you have a?
Oh, just a question. Can you scroll up just a little bit there? So, or down, sorry, other way. So, just looking, so a lot of the fees I saw just bumped up $1, but.
Yeah, I noticed this too. So Ashley was gone today. The adult 10-punch pass, I think, was actually just going to be rounded up to 60. And then there's one other pass on there. The music family would be an even 40. And when you crunch the percentages and increase for your $1 increase, it's very minuscule in those season passes. So it was more of a, I think, less of an increase in those cases as well. So it didn't.
So it's 40 for music family pass and 60 for the 10-punch?
10-punch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are those the ones they buy online or what?
Either or.
Passes?
Either or. So we will still sell cash sales at all events and passes through our office. Realistically, what we will do if someone wants to purchase a, say, a 10-punch or a season pass, a full-year pass, we will just print off the QR code that we can scan at the events for them. So just print them a copy. But those are available online sales or in our office. So.
Do you know the history of the price raises?
There's a couple of the prices I'm not familiar with the history. Actually, in my plans for next year is to look into the music and the fine arts price structures and see if if those need to be looked at further. But at this point, I think we've tried to stay within the conference, and I think our prices, especially the free. If you look at the rest of the Big 9 schools, I don't know if there are any that are full free across the board for their students and staff. So we're ahead of the game there. But the rest of the prices do look similar to the rest of the conference.
I'd look for a motion to approve the changes in our activity pass rates.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Kim seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. Okay, motion passes. And MSHSL update, Paul.
So I had a conversation with one of the associate directors of the high school league on Friday. He is indicating we're going to be receiving some sort of communication from the high school league regarding last year's COVID fee that we have not paid. I still have not received anything from them. I mean, we started sports today, and they have not given us any communication yet. So I shared with him my displeasure for the lack of prompt communication on the high school league's part, and so we know that. A piece of good news for the board is this, though. We are part of Region 1 as far as that's our region for activities, and we are going to be receiving approximately $4,500 back from Region 1. They have decided to, I think a lot of the schools had to pay significant extra money this past few years, really. The league prices are really going up. So we are going to be receiving that back from Region 1. So that is something we could utilize to help defray future COVID increases from the high school league. So that's a real positive. And then we got Paul up here still. And Paul, Jill asked a question about procedures during events themselves. You want to give us your insight on that?
So the Minnesota State High School League guidance has been, as I like to say it, intentionally vague. I do have an appreciation that we will locally be able to, follow our district procedures and what's best for Albert Lee. There will be some challenges navigating between different schools, as Dr. Funk had mentioned earlier. We know of a few different conference schools that are already putting different procedures in place that we don't have in place, and it'll be interesting to see what's going to be required when we arrive at a different site for an event, or if those teams will still follow their district policies when they attend an event here as well. And as ADs, we typically communicate well in advance of any event at another site already. So there's some structures in place to help share our procedures and protocol that we already do. But you know, it will still present some challenges. The guidance, I would explain, is either intentionally vague or very ticky-tack. Like there was a suggestion that the kicker on the football team be the only one to touch the kicking tee. And I mean, just little things that, you know, don't have a major impact in the grand scheme of things. But it's obvious that they're deferring to us to help set our procedures.
There hasn't been any conversation that you know of about, because the students that are participating in sections and high school league tournaments and state tournaments, that they're at the age that they can get vaccinated, that there'll be a requirement there of any? No.
No.
Okay.
No, hasn't been any conversation there.
Dave?
Yes, Neil.
I'm just envisioning possible scenarios. So Rochester has, it would seem, stricter protocol than we do relative to masks anyway. Is it possible that they could refuse to attend any event on our campus because we have less strict provisions than they do?
Each school is going to have to make their own local decisions, I think. In this case, they're going to have to make decisions based on what's best for their students. I don't foresee that coming. I do feel that we'll work those things out, and I know the superintendents have been meeting on this topic as well, and maybe Dr. Funk has heard some more on that. I also think that the high school league is going to have to come up with a structure and what happens if that's the case. Is it a forfeit, or is it something we need to plan in advance so we can find another opponent? And that could get real messy, sure. But we're still early. The high school league has not provided guidance until now, so now we will act and start planning, and we'll see where this all goes, too. So.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Hope I wasn't too long, Jennifer.
9.3, Jennifer.
I tried to text the guy to turn the air on, but I have not been successful.
Okay, well, settle in, because I've got a nice long update on the Well at Work clinic. So I did want to give you this, because you may hear some things that'll come out of the county when they have their board meeting tomorrow night. So just to get you guys up to speed, as all of you know, we have a Well at Work clinic here right on site for our district employees who are on our health insurance plan. It is located here at the Brookside building. It's open 5 days a week, varying times during the day to try and fit everybody's schedule. It offers really a pretty wide range of things available: sports and annual physicals, preventative care, COVID testing and vaccinations, anxiety, depression, and stress can be addressed, lab works. Our current model is that we have one nurse practitioner who works at the clinic. It is under the Health Partners is who actually operates our clinic, and so the nurse practitioner is an employee of Health Partners. We have 2 exam rooms in the actual clinic, but right now we just have one nurse practitioner. And the way it works is that there is no out-of-pocket cost to our employees to go to the Well at Work clinic, but we do process claims. So Health Partners sends a claim to Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is our health insurance provider. And then at the end of the year, that gets reconciled. The revenue from those claims offsets the cost of operating the clinic. And our history is that the claims do not cover the cost of running the clinic. And so in the past, When we get a reconciliation at the end of the year, before we went self-insured last year, we were with a cooperative through Sourcewell. And so that dollar amount that we were short, Sourcewell would pay on our behalf, but it was considered, you know, a claim against our district. So it went into our district's history. And those amounts varied anywhere from $65,000 a year to $170,000 a year. We do not yet have the amount for last year. They have not done that reconciliation yet. Now, but whatever that amount is, that will come out of our new self-insured plan. We did end that when we did a close, and right now the fund balance in that plan is a little bit over $3.5 million. So we did have an outstanding year. There may be a few miscellaneous end-of-year entries that we need to do with that, but I don't anticipate that that will change very much. But the fact of the matter is, the clinic has not paid for itself when you think about it just from a purely dollars and cents. And so we were thinking, okay, what can we do to offset more or even hopefully eliminate this differential between revenue and the cost of running the clinic? And the county has expressed interest, Freeborn County, in partnering with us, with the school district, for our clinic. We currently operate at about 50% capacity. So the number of available appointments a week, right now we're operating, and really last year it was a little under 50%. On average from year to year, it goes anywhere from 55 to 65%. We haven't gotten back to that level yet. Ideally, we would operate at about a 90% of our total capacity. That would still give the nurse practitioner some time to do her reports and any paperwork. So we know we've got capacity. And so this would be really an ideal partnership, I believe, for the district. So we met, we being myself, Bria Hamburg, who's our district person who does a lot with our benefits, Aaron Casper and Perry Guilfoyle from National Insurance Services. They are our consultants, and they also happen to be the consultants for Freeborn County, which is going to make this conversation a lot easier. If this would work out, we would be targeting a January 1 date that the partnership would commence. Looking at the total number of covered lives or covered people in the two groups, we would be about 2/3 of the total, and Freeborn County would be about 1/3 of the total. How many? We have about 600. We're about 900 total bodies. Oh, that's right, with dependents, yeah. 900 total bodies, so they're somewhere in the 300 range. We are looking into, National Insurance's attorney is looking into some shared services contracts that might fit our needs. We're just in that process. Tom Jensen, the county administrator, is who we met with from the county. He is actually going to be talking to his board tomorrow night about this possibility. And so we're just, again, we're kind of in the beginning stages of the conversation. I think there's a very high likelihood that this will come to fruition, and I think this would absolutely be a benefit to our school district. The clinic would remain here at Brookside. Their staff would have access to the online appointments, just like our staff does. We will get that fill rate a little closer to the 90%. And if, in fact, it really takes off, we do have 2 exam rooms in the clinic and only 1 nurse practitioner right now. So we could slowly bring on a second person as demand might necessitate. So that's really where we are.
So the other piece of information for the board is we know that Mercy One has opened up at the former Herberger store. I met with Brad Ahrens a couple times this spring and summer. We did have some of the administrators from Mercy One come in and look at our on-site clinic back in June, or back in May, excuse me. They brought operations person with them sometime in the past few weeks. You know, feedback we get from staff is they absolutely love the location of the clinic here. It's at Brookside. They can come from work, boom, go right there, out the door and, the private entrance down around the corner. And, we did spend significant money when we built the clinic out. So we asked Mercy, because they've said, well, do you want to come, join us at the mall location? And we said, well, could you guys serve us here? And so that discussion has started to take place. Jennifer has informed me that if we do look at entering in any sort of switch or agreement between providers, we will have to go out for a formal RFP. We can't just say, okay, we're gonna switch from you to you. But I wanted the board to be aware that we're having that discussion as well.
That's good to hear. I, as you all know, I'm a little bit prejudiced in this matter. But I would be willing to bet that they would, and I don't know, maybe Mayo would get in the game too.
Right. If we go out for an RFP, obviously, it would be open to anyone. It's a contract that is probably valued in the $350,000 range to run the clinic. So it's definitely something we would have to go out for an RFP. I don't know how quickly something like that would happen. I think if we enter into this agreement with Freeborn County, we want to give that a little bit of time to kind of settle in, see how it goes. There's even some other models we may want to look at rather than this filing claims. We may want to look at a capitated cost, and we just share that cost, and that would be an ideal time then if we decide to go down that road, that we would go out for an RFP.
I wasn't suggesting, I'm not going to try to move anything in the direction of Mercy One, but I think, if we would form a coalition with the county and maybe the city, these entities out there would be really interested. I know Mercy One is very interested in the district's clientele. And if we could get a pool of potential patients, I bet these entities out there would get real agreeable in coming up with some kind of an arrangement.
I know that our current nurse practitioner, one thing I asked her is, what is your referral? How do your referrals work? And she says she refers to both Mercy One and Mayo, just depending on what her patient maybe prefers. So she has that ability, to refer to either place, and there's some value to that.
I know it's early in the conversations, but has there been a concern with the security then of that the potential additional traffic? Our other buildings have entry, and we have students in this building, so just curious about that.
Yeah, the only door that is open in this building right now is the door right outside the clinic. And for this past year, we had somebody sitting there as they walked through the scanners. So that would be something we would have to take a look at if we move down this route.
I hope no county employees take offense to that question.
So I'll keep you posted as we learn more, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood that these conversations are starting to happen.
And Dave, there's a mistake on the agenda. The next meeting is, I think, Tuesday. I think the agenda says Monday.
My comments, our next meeting will be the 8th then of September. Tuesday, right? You get 7th as Monday. It does say Monday, yeah.
But I think it's Tuesday.
Yep. And that will be a study session at 5 p.m. here?
Yeah, Tuesday the 7th.
7th, it is, okay. So I just got Monday there. So it is Tuesday, September 7th, 5 p.m. here. Thank you for attending tonight. Meeting adjourned.